The previous 18 or so months have not been particularly kind to our favourite genre of co-op heisting games, known pretty much only to me as Payday-likes. Not only did Payday 3 completely fail to hit the mark by every imaginable metric, setting the genre back about 10 years in the process and leaving the entire franchise's future in limbo, interest in creating similar games has waned when compared to the co-op heisting gold rush of the mid-2010s, when everyone from EA to Rockstar wanted a piece of the pie. The heyday of Payday, if you will. However, it's not all doom and gloom in 2025. In fact, regardless of Payday 3's uncertain future, and despite D&D licensed Project Backshot's unlikely to appeal to fans of the series, there is a glimmer of heisting and co-op shooter DNA-riddled hope on the horizon. This video is going to act as somewhat of a state of the union for Payday and Heist-like games, covering the current pick-up-and-play experiences of already released titles such as the classic Payday 2, infamous Payday 3, or hilarious Crime Boss Rock City, as well as the development status of other impending releases, including Den of Wolves and distant cousins of the genre such as the upcoming and recently delayed Killing Floor 3. That said, let's discuss the future of Payday-likes. Starting with where I'm most familiar, Payday 3's predecessors, Payday the Heist and Payday 2, which are still going strong enough to keep the community engaged. Whilst you might assume there's no reason to play Payday the Heist given so much of its original content has been replicated within Payday 2, there has been a renaissance of sorts in recent years, as its unique gameplay feel, hardcore grounded mechanics, and in particular excellent characterization that make the Payday gang so memorable, feels worth experiencing at least once. Of course, it can't compete with Payday 2 when it comes to scope of content though. The quality might be inconsistent in places, but with over 10 years of development behind it, Payday 2 is massive. The build, heist, and weapon variety is unlike pretty much anything else the genre has to offer, making it undoubtedly the most must-play of all games I'm going to discuss on this list. While Starbreeze have done a fair bit of inexplicable and undocumented self-sabotage to the game since Payday 3's release, adding new bugs and making unpopular changes, if you take a step back and look at Payday 2 for what it is, you'll still find yourself in awe of the sheer scale of the beast. Just be aware, licensed content is steadily disappearing. As of August of last year, characters like John Wick, Bodhi, and Jimmy joined Scarface as no longer available if you didn't already own them in-game, whilst even associated heist and weapon content is starting to expire. It's a massive shame that will make Payday 2 a less enticing proposition for new players, but is, I suppose, the logical endpoint of Bo going balls to the walls with the licensed collabs back in the day. Payday 2 remains an absolute giant of the genre, but sadly doesn't command the reputation it once did. And whilst I'm not going to linger on it for too long, as I made my thoughts fairly clear in this recent video, Payday 3 remains a playable option with a stable enough, if dwindling player base, although thanks to the highly requested ChromeNet functionality and the presence of crossplay, it's much more playable online than it once was. Offline mode looks to be permanently out of reach, but the game has admittedly come a decent way since launch in terms of playability. Its greatest crime has always been expecting rapturous applause for implementing base features, making it almost impossible to work up ahead of Steam and win back a proper community with truly impactful releases. As a result, the future looks extremely bleak. Despite an incredibly well-received February update, including a massive overhaul to the overskill system and the addition of fan-favourite crossover character Jacket, that momentum has been well and truly lost in the wake of almost 3 months with no news and a completely stagnant game state. With Plyon in disarray, it's tough to say what's coming next, and whilst we know there are 2 heists currently in development for the game, with at least one update including Armor 2.0 pending for May 26th, we also know there's a massively reduced team currently working on it, so set expectations accordingly. Anyone closely following the news of other goings-on at Starbreeze Entertainment will know the company's very existence is once again riddled with uncertainty. On that cheery note, I do feel I'd be remiss not to also mention the bright light that is Notoriety, a Payday experience. I've covered this Payday 2 inspired Roblox game twice on my channel in the past 6 months, and despite concluding Payday 2 would be a better starting point for most, do have a hell of a lot of respect for what Moonstone Games has achieved, and continues to achieve with this title. There's plenty of unique mechanics, systems and heists to try out, and the game continues to receive sizable updates, getting fun new tools like akimbo weapons, new levels of infamy, and most recently, the return of Payday 2's nightclub heist, something Payday 3 can only dream of. Well worth a try if you can get past the stigma of it being stuck on Roblox. Speaking of games with a fair bit of stigma attached, Raid World War II was once known for its desperate attempt to recapture the magic in the bottle that was Payday 2, unsuccessfully. A poorly marketed, confusing interpretation of Payday in Nazi Germany, unable to outcompete its inspiration for existing, the upstream struggle for Raid's devs, Lion Game Lion, was unwinnable, until a team of passionate diesel engine modders took over the torch. Following the massive Resurgence update last August, which prompted me to give the game a go again, Raid's entire gunplay, RPG and progression systems have been overhauled, giving the game an entirely new feel and lease of life. For context, Raid has had as many major updates as Payday 3 this year, many more hotfixes, and more new missions, which really isn't saying much given we're comparing it to a total of 0. The future of the game is bright whilst the mod team responsible for its revival remains involved, so I'd absolutely recommend picking this up if you want more of that classic Payday feel in a very unique setting. Again, there's never going to be enough content to dethrone Payday 2, and diesel jank is always to be expected, but if it's one you've passed over in the past, there's absolutely good reason to finally give it a go in 2025. Finally, for the already released FPS Payday-likes, this list wouldn't be complete without checking in on crime boss Rock City. A game with a cast that might have looked A-list in the early 90s, hilariously clunky cutscenes, and a title taken directly from one of those mobile game ads with a level 1 mobster, it was rightly ridiculed on launch for seemingly rushing to market to frontrun Payday 3, full of bugs and with limited content, despite the novel concept of its roguelite mode. What looked like a blatant cash grab at the onset turned out to have a much more loving and dedicated team than anyone could anticipate, evolving some of the few original ideas the game brought to the table and expanding the game in terms of mechanics, modes, and missions. Crime Boss is nothing if not memeable, and by leaning into that silliness, it's captured a genuinely engaged player base who seem to have responded well to the direction they've taken it in. I will always have a soft spot for the silliness of the roguelite mode, although don't believe the game holds a candle to Payday within the 4-player co-op niche. Regardless, it still scratches an itch, and the devs at in-game studios haven't missed a beat in capturing many of those disenfranchised Payday players. Crossplay and recent deep discounts have bolstered the player base, making it much easier to find lobbies, and a steady stream of free and paid content, our character packs and new mission types, all according to a content roadmap they've had the confidence to announce, means we have a decent idea of what's to come. I did not expect to see this game still in active development 2 years after launch, so it has already defied expectations, and with a sizable stealth-focused art gallery heist on the horizon, a staple of the genre, now might not be such a bad time to step into Baker's shoes and find out what new adventures await. I intend to give it the challenge run treatment once more, so keep an eye out for that if you're still on the fence. Moving on to Payday-likes that have yet to release, top on my list has to be Den of Wolves. It's also probably top of the list of the dev team at 10 Chambers, as these guys love slipping in the fact that they were heavily responsible for creating Payday the Heist and Payday 2. This is a marketing strategy that doesn't necessarily guarantee a successful game, although it would be hard to deny Ulf and Simon have pedigree when it comes to these sorts of creations. After the cult success of GTFO, which tested out a lot of unique concepts, not least seeing whether you can release a co-op game with literally no matchmaking, and following a 10-cent cash injection, they've gone back to their heisting roots with Den of Wolves, although the narrative and setting is a serious departure from the grounded heisting games we usually think of. Midway City is a corporate dystopia set deep enough in the future to allow us to seemingly rob stuff directly from people's minds, leading to a more high-concept heisting experience. The expectation is that we won't be stealing from banks or corner shops, so core heisting fantasy stuff of lockpicks and blowtorches look to be sacrificed in favour of more high-stakes, singularly focused objectives. In terms of what we've seen so far, the initial reveal trailer at the Game Awards in 2023 was designed to build up the world and introduce us to Simon Viklund's musical style in this game, with the gameplay announcement the following year giving us a little more insight into the way heists will likely play out. A couple of weeks ago, almost out of nowhere, game journalists started showing off unedited gameplay, which gives us a better idea of how Den of Wolves is gonna look, feel, and sound. My take from watching that is, like GTFO before it, it's a very Unity-developed game. Unlike the almost robotic professionalism of Unreal Engine, which can lead to very polished but soulless releases, Unity FPSs look a little more weightless and janky, giving them more personality at the cost of cleanliness. Just look at this ragdoll. If that isn't diesel engine coded, I don't know what is. The voice work in the gameplay snippet sounds a little placeholder, but this is the heist we've seen teased over the past couple of years, a hit on Bowman's subconscious, a dangerous place to dive. They've done a great job of giving the weapons a unique and futuristic feel, as well as using the setting to create interesting gameplay warping devices, such as these remote shields, showcasing a section of gameplay that reminds me of the calm before the storm when prepping for a breach in GTFO. It strikes me as a highlight of the mission, before the weirdness of the dive, as we enter the fragmented mind of Bowman in a trippy parkour section. I have serious concerns as to how these sorts of mechanics will impact the flow and replayability of Den of Wolves heists, looking like cool to play through once on Rails experiences that won't mesh well with repeat playthroughs, which is what the co-op genre has traditionally been all about. I'm very much on the fence having seen this, as I think the high concept stuff lands conceptually and narratively, but worry how it could impact the key component, gameplay. However, most things outside of that look really intriguing, if still in dire need of more time to cook. I look forward to being able to share more about the game in the coming months if the news keeps coming at the rate it currently is. Moving on to another game that seemingly needs time in the oven, around the same time Payday 3 was entering the final stages of its hype cycle, we also saw what felt like a quite inexplicable trailer for Sony's upcoming heisting title, Fairgame, during that fateful Summer Games Fest. This CGI trailer went down like a bit of a lead balloon, mostly just confusing and pissing people off with its hello fellow kids, eat the rich hypocrisy. It was also clumsy in how it showcased its gameplay loop, trying to convey this focused heist fantasy at the same time as its strange PvPvE mechanics, functioning somewhat like Hunt Showdown with fights against both AI and human opponents. It's not necessarily a bad concept for a game, but undoubtedly narrows the niche of players it'll appeal to. Even worse, it's one of Sony's dreaded live service flagships, put on hold after the well-publicised failure of Concord. The game has apparently been pushed back to 2026 as things stand, although I wouldn't be surprised if it was pushed even further indefinitely or ended up looking very different when it finally makes it out the door. Not one I'm chomping at the bit to sink my teeth into if I'm being honest, and if its barren Twitter account is anything to go by, we won't be in any danger of doing so anytime soon. To finish this video off, I want to do a final roundup of games that fell a little further from the Payday-like tree, but still have enough in common to potentially appeal, starting off with the recently released Monaco 2, a robbery-focused game with stealth and action combat played from a unique 3D isometric perspective. If you enjoy some of the heisting thematics and wackier RPG elements of Payday, as well as the core cooperative experience, this might just be a fun distraction for you to try out. Don't expect the depth or longevity of an online co-op FPS, but this one is much more than just a gimmicky party game. If the heisting part isn't a deal breaker for you though, maybe you're better off trying out Deep Rock Galactic, a game that fits the class-based 4-player co-op FPS PvE mold to a T. This has to have been the most highly recommended game for me to play back during the days of Payday 2. And despite the core experience seemingly sitting on the back burner in terms of seasonal updates, as Ghost Ship Games looks to grow the franchise, there's more than enough already there to tempt Payday fans into giving it a go. I'll also be keeping an eye on its roguelike spin-off, Deep Rock Galactic Rogue Core, a logical expansion of those co-op FPS roots that is currently in closed alpha. It's an offshoot of the genre that fascinates me, especially after Crime Boss's recent attempts, and Payday 2's Crime Spree mode that failed to truly nail down the formula. Regardless, having more excuses to scream rock and stone seems like a good thing. I expect the original game to find itself as the subject of one of my Payday-like deep dives in the coming months. Killing Floor 3 is also on the way in late 2025, after being pushed from its initial launch window of March due to complaints regarding everything ranging from performance, visuals, UI, RPG mechanics, and the core feel of the gameplay, raised during the closed beta, all of which seem somewhat familiar to those of us who went through the Payday 3 launch cycle. So far, it appears as if this was the correct approach by Tripwire, as they have made progress, but without sound fundamentals and a potential over-reliance upon live service magic to fix the game over time, whilst funding development with microtransactions, I'll be watching this one like a hawk with a healthy dose of skepticism, having been stung before. Let's just say the turnaround success stories of games recovering from a failed launch are few and far between, so it's absolutely crucial they get it right this time around. Finally, there is of course Project Bagshot, known to the prudish or uninitiated as Baxter. This is Starbreeze's next cooperative experience built in Unreal 5 and planned as another live service title, licensing its D&D world from Wizards of the Coast. From what's been shared, they're clearly very happy with the game's appearance and theming, but we don't know much more than that. I wouldn't expect Baxter to turn into the fantasy Payday experience of our dreams, and I'm sure many Payday fans will despise it implicitly for its reputation as management's favourite son that ripped devs away from Payday 3. But I will at least be paying attention whenever we get more news, if only to see if my fury is justified. With release slated for 2026, we could see promotion kick off as early as this summer, but if I was a betting man, I'd say don't hold your breath. And that's it for this roundup of Payday-likes. The future looks interesting, even if it doesn't always appear particularly bright. If push comes to shove, there's always Oblivion. Keep a lookout for deeper dives on most of the games included within this list in the coming months under my Payday-like playlist, as although we finally have a date, I still need something to do whilst we wait yet another month for the Payday 3 update to finally release. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to check out my link in the description if you're in the market for a new gaming PC from the guys over at Apex, and stay tuned on the channel with some very exciting, fairly exclusive videos coming your way shortly. I'll hopefully see you all there. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.